Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we've got to talk about the Division universe at large, because there are some big things being revealed and teased right now, things that have the potential to truly shake up the foundation of the Division world as we know it, and set us up for what could be a wild future beyond this current roadmap that we have leading into next year, and surprise surprise, all of this seems to be leading towards one destination, the Brooklyn DLC we're getting at the end of Year 5. So today I want to break down what's been going on, what we know, and give some of my thoughts and speculation on how it might all play out. Fair warning, this video will contain spoilers on a few things such as the Division 2's current and ongoing story, as well as a few selective tie-in media pieces. I will give another warning before we discuss those, but just keep that in mind. With all of that said, if you end up enjoying the video and you want to stay up to date on the latest info and breakdowns like these for the Division, I hope you'll consider clicking that subscribe button. So, like I mentioned, there are a few different angles at which this is all unraveling, but let's just start with the first one that many have been discussing lately, that being the Descent comms. Now, if you were unaware, the new Descent game mode that got added with the Year 5 Season 1 update for the Division 2 has a weekly project that you can complete. All it requires is that you defeat the Nemesis once that week, and in return, you get awarded a new audio log. Now, before the update dropped, I saw a lot of skepticism from people thinking that these likely wouldn't be all that interesting, or that they wouldn't be connected to the main story at all, whatever, right? Well, we've received a handful of them now since the update went live, and that couldn't be further from the truth. These are some of the most revealing and interesting comms the game has gotten in a long time, at least in my opinion. So spoiler warning here if you haven't yet collected those and maybe want to do it for yourself instead of hearing about them here. And the first thing I have to do here is give a major shout out to NGN's recent video on this subject. If you haven't watched it yet, you absolutely should. As always, he does a fantastic job taking what the game's narrative provides and contextualizing it, tying it all together. I was following along with these comms myself, but once I saw his analysis on it, without question, it elevated my understanding and perspective on the significance of it all. So again, I highly recommend you check that out. Link will be in the description below. But the basic gist of these comms we've received is that they are all from before the pandemic, before the green poison outbreak, and it's Natalia Sokolova, head or high-ranking member of the Black Tusk, and Calvin McManus, head of Homeland Security. And they're meeting with these two individuals from Tease Robotics, who in the future we know created the Descent simulation that we're playing in this update. And what we learn is that these two people, Alex and Claire, and their company are the creators of 3 different artificial intelligence systems. Isaac, of course we've known and used ever since the first Division game, Anna, which we first learned of in the Warlords expansion as a kind of Isaac counterpart for rogues, and a third one, which we'll speak on more in a moment. But throughout the various comms, we hear about the continued development of these 3 systems, Cal and Natalia's various interactions and biddings with these 2 creators, as well as their attempts to go behind one another's backs. The most important of which, again, NGN highlighted this wonderfully, the fact that we can hear Claire explain to McManus that with the right configuration and access, you can use any of the 3 systems in order to gain access to the other 2. And at least at the time, he's the only person with this knowledge and capability, and right away, this makes some crazy connections, because it provides an actual, tangible, lore-based explanation for the Hunters' insane intuition. Of course, we learned back in Season 9 that the Hunters are actually a part of Homeland Security, and so if their leader has the ability to tap into the databases of any of these 3 networks, it's no wonder that they're always able to be everywhere, and anticipate not only our every move, but the rogues as well. Recall back to Season 3 when a Hunter would beat us every single time to those bounty missions. So that alone was a pretty wild revelation. NGN points out that Keener likely found a way to utilize this feature as well, and that would explain his vast amount of knowledge and, again, intuition. So like I said, that contextualizes Homeland and the Hunters much more, gives us a better understanding of why they're such a lethal threat. But let's also talk about the other keynote here, that third AI system. You want to know what its name is? Diamond. You want to know where else we've heard that term recently? Oh right, just the fact that on the Year 5 roadmap, Season 4, the season that's going to be tied with the release of this new Brooklyn DLC, is titled Diamond. I mean, coincidences exist, but this ain't one of them. And that's not the only key point here. Once again, highlighted by NGN, would you believe me if I told you that we've been exposed to this Diamond AI for years, and in fact you've likely seen it in-game almost every time you log on? Well, that's because every Black Tusk unit has a brick right in the same spot that our Isaac bricks are, except theirs have a diamond symbol on display. I mean, it's like, how did we miss that? The Black Tusk have had their own AI system this entire time, and frankly, it just all makes too much sense, given everything that we've seen with them. I've seen more than one of the devs giving Diamond specifically some extra winks and nods over on Twitter, and so I think it's safe to say that it is not only important, but that we will hopefully learn more about it in the upcoming seasons and story. Certainly during Season 4, if not before. But before we fully dive into predictions and speculation and all that, there is one other thing I wanted to mention because it is what I believe to be an incredibly telling tease we got a while back that could very likely play into this whole storyline, and that was back from the Compromised novel we got late last year. Super good book, second in the Crossroads saga, highly recommend if you haven't read it, link again down below, and so spoilers if you have not read it. But something interesting about the book is the fact that it takes place in April of the year following the events of the Division 2's main campaign. And while the Division 2 began back in June of the timeline, we now know, and I've talked about this in some recent videos, that as of Year 5 Season 1, we are at the earliest in October, given some returning characters and referenced events as of this latest target. Alright, so keep that in mind. In-game right now, we're in October. The Compromised book takes place 6 months ahead of that, and the book contained this one line. It wasn't focused on, it wasn't given any special emphasis, but clearly it's quite the tease for what's to come, because it said this: the Division had lost all legal authority in November when they'd been ordered to shut down operations. I'm gonna read that again. The Division had lost all legal authority in November when they had been ordered to shut down operations. Now, back in my Compromised review video, I referred to this as the November event, and back then we had no idea when or if this might even play out in the Division 2, yet now that we have a sense of the timeline, we know we're within a month, if not closer to November, and we know that this big new story drop is coming with this DLC in Season 4. I think the picture is beginning to come together. Here is my very rough guess at what we're going to see play out over these coming seasons. We see Calvin McManus continue to creep back into the story as he was notably absent after Season 9. We get a sense of how those interactions with Ortiz from before the Green Poison translate to now, how much control he has over these 3 different AI systems. Season 3 will go back to New York, as we already know, investigate more of Keener's doings, hear his perspective on these AI, gain some greater context on the events of Wony, Cal and Natalia's plans, all of that, and that will give us the clues and insight to lead right into Season 4, where we drop into Brooklyn, presumably to take on Cal and or Natalia more directly. We learn more about Anna and Diamond, maybe even interact with them to a larger degree, and however it plays out, or whoever is left standing, it results in some kind of order from the chain of command that the Division is ordered to cease operations. How we get to that point, I have the slightest idea. How it might work into all of this crazy information we are learning about these AIs and Ortiz, who knows? But I really do feel like the November event is finally going to be worked into the story, especially considering they made a point to clarify that we are approaching that time slot chronologically. So, like I said, how this is all going to connect together and play out remains to be seen, but I truly can't wait for us to learn more, and before we know it, it'll be boots on the ground for us to experience it all for ourselves in Brooklyn, and I cannot wait for that day. That's everything I've got for you today, guys. I just wanted to comment on all of these recent developments as they do promise some big shakeups for the Division universe. And with these threads of the Descent comms, the November event, all seemingly pointing towards this DLC that we're looking forward to at the end of Year 5, it just makes it all that much more exciting. Let me know your thoughts on this whole discussion though. What are some of your ideas and theories spawning from these Descent comms? What do you think of this looming November event? And how do you see it all tying together, if you even think it will? Lots of angles to approach this from, and as always, I look forward to reading your thoughts on it. That's all for me, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.